Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Deep Waves Transformation. Today's guest is someone whose story speaks to the quiet strength that often grows in the shadows, where survival, healing, and self reclamation meet. She was a parentified child raised in a home where she had to function as an adult far earlier than most, with a mother who was oxygen deprived at birth and a family that encouraged silence over truth. She learned to navigate life through resilience, emotional intuition, and eventually a strong stoic philosophy rooted in agency and self mastery. Like actor Alan Alda, whose mother also lived with mental health challenges, our guest had to develop her own compass in a world that didn't always make sense. And while that path led to hyper independence, it also led to a lifetime of resourcefulness, adaptability, and hard earned wisdom. She's not only a seasoned businesswoman and real estate expert, but also a devoted wife of 36 years, a sibling turned protector, and a woman who has turned generational wounds into purpose. She's here to share her journey through family dynamics, stoicism, marriage, entrepreneurship, and what it means to live as a more healed version of yourself. Please join me in welcoming a resilient soul and powerful storyteller, Sharon Riddle. How are you today, Sharon? Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, I'm doing well, Tasha. I'm really doing well, and I'm really I'm really glad to share this part of my story that can enlighten and inspire other people in their own healing journeys and ways they can navigate their worlds in in a more healed and successful way.
Yeah, absolutely. That is the goal. So, you've been open about growing up as a parentified child. For listeners who may not be familiar with that term, can you describe what that experience was like for you?
Well, since my mom was born uh, as an oxygen deprived child. They were she was born in Millsap, Texas, kind of in the middle of a storm. She had a twin brother, and they just couldn't get to a doctor fast enough, and she literally was what they termed in those days a blue baby. So
Oh,
she went blue. And her dad, by his sheer determination as a railroad signal maintainer, just kept tapping on her back until she took her first breath.
wow.
So, really an intense situation. It was an intense story to hear it be retold. But in my role, I was kind of a double whammy because I'm eldest daughter. So that
Okay.
comes with a lot of caregiver type roles and
Sure.
guardian type roles. Uh, but also the fact that my mom really functioned more on a child or rebellious teenager mental level a
Okay.
lot of the time. And this was in the 60s when I was, we were all younger. So I really was raising the younger children. I was the mother to the younger children that were my siblings really, but my mother didn't always function as everyone's mother. So I was kind of like the default mother.
Wow.
So, changing the diapers, a lot of adult tasks were really kind of thrust upon me at an early age. And I actually literally was developing, as I went along, developing rules, household rules that gave boundaries to my own mother.
Wow.
Like when she's stepping over the line because, these are, I'm still the child. And I was trying to maintain agency as a child and then moving into my youth. And I will say that that's kind of been a struggle with her and with our dynamic and keeping my own agency, and at times literally walking off the family stage
Wow.
to maintain those boundaries and also operate in a world that made sense to me as an adult and a person who had a fully functioning brain. Yeah, it's still it's less of a struggle now. My mother is 87 years old. She is still with us. However, she's kind of at a level where a lot of people, um, well, she's kind of equalized out because so many people at her age as seniors are more dependent on other people.
Sure.
They don't have as much autonomy. They have more health issues, things of that nature. And so um, I'll never forget when my brother was passing away, when he was dying of colon cancer. A couple of my cousins went to the hospital and they said, "Wow, your mom is really, really declining. What is going on?" Well, in the larger family gatherings in her family, in the Becker family, she was a pretty good actress.
Mm,
Yeah, you had the whole actress persona where she was maintaining the normal things, but she did that in a as a in a performance. So she was the funny one. Aunt Louise was always the funny one. She was always the silly one
mhm.
for my Becker cousins and for my Flushy cousins. And that's how she maintained uh, her place in the family and did a really tried hard to cover up any deficiencies that existed regarding her her thinking process or how she operated in her world.
Sure. How many siblings do you have?
Uh, I had I have two brothers. One passed away at 55, and then a younger sister.
Wow. So you had the both of them in your care pretty much
Yeah,
their whole life?
the youngest two. Yeah, pretty much. Driving them to school, uh, doing a lot of things for them. But I would say some interesting dynamics had come up even while I was at school because I actually had a librarian aunt who told me, something's not right with your sister. And the dynamic, once I was at home with my younger sister, and there's 9 years between us, she, most of the time, she would be calm. But when my aunt dropped by to see my mother, she said, "Your sister was screaming the entire time."
Oh,
It was a story I had never heard until that that aunt told me because the dynamics were totally different once I entered the family home coming back from school.
interesting. Let's talk about that. Can you share some of those dynamics?
Well, I will say my sister was really, when we were younger, very, she always wanted to be with me. So always near me. So I guess some kind of protection or, just safe, feeling safe.
Right.
But I can tell you, Tasha, that to this day, I'm never totally sure what was going on in that episode
Oh,
because that's not how things were once I came back home. But maybe it was because the substitute mother came back. I don't know.
hey. And what was the age range that she was in at that time?
She wasn't even grade school level.
Okay. And then when did you start to slowly feel the shift?
Well, I will say with my sister, she ended up being a very rebellious youth.
Okay.
So I, I was really kind of operating in what was seemed to be a more normal path for me. I went to school. It's a typical path that a lot of people uh, engage in the world. You
Right.
you go to school, you get good grades, go to college, keep your grades, you work hard, and
Right.
you land your first job, that kind of thing.
Right.
Well, somehow, when there was less access to me, my sister's path really deviated a great deal.
Okay.
Yeah, so those are some of the family dynamics. And my brother, my two brothers, kind of operated in a time period where they were a little bit more adrift. So
Wow.
when I was busy in my college years and even in my high school years,
Hmm.
because I was also in band, so I had my extracurricular activities that I was responsible for. I was like a responsible kid.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just seemed like things uh didn't really, well, at least the whole pretense couldn't be kept up
Yeah.
quite as well.
Right.
It couldn't be, because my youngest sister actually uh ended up leaving my family's home.
Wow.
Yeah, so she ended up doing that because she decided that she wanted to have fun with her friends,
Sure.
and she was not interested or able to uh, really follow some of my father's rules.
Okay.
Because I will say that sometimes, most of the time, my father's rules would make sense. Not always, but
Uh-huh.
a lot of time. But my mother was the one who had arbitrary rules that she would really lay out. And I was the one who really uh, kind of pushed back more on those. I'm like, is that how we need to be operating as a family? Is this how, some of my friends are operating? I would specifically ask, well, do our friends, the Carters, do they operate this way? Or the Novaks or the Brannicks, because these were
Right.
people that she knew. And then my mom could at least try to reflect on that. It's like, oh, I think that's when she at least understood at a very basic level that she was outside of some norms.
Okay.
But I was kind of the boundary setter with this, or I was the assessor.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what emotional toll did carrying all those adult responsibilities as a child
It was a lot.
take from you
It was a
even
lot of,
into your adult life?
yeah, it was a lot of, weight, a lot of burden. I will say the time period where it could be a little lighter is, thank goodness for Saturday Night Live and Monty Python's Flying Circus
Yeah.
in the 1970s, because that's the time frame we're talking about. Because then
Uh-huh.
we could just laugh. I could just laugh with my brothers.
Aw.
We could just kind of laugh together and do something that was just kind of fun and silly, and just, inside some norms.
Yeah, and you could share a bond for a minute.
We could just be kids.
Yeah.
We could just be youth. You know, my my youngest brother is like 6 years younger than me, but
Okay.
my other brother was a couple of years younger than me. So, we had the two youths and then the younger
Oh,
brother.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we
yeah.
had that little dynamic going on. So, yeah.
Uh-huh. So, you've shared that Stoicism became a guiding philosophy for you. How did that emerge in your healing journey?
Well, it was I was the disciplined one. I was the one that was uh, not afraid to do hard work and wouldn't complain about hard work. Now, how that manifested in my family home, even though my mom would do laundry, there were things that she would do. She would do the laundry. She would cook because
Okay.
her mother had taught her how to do all these things. So
Okay.
it was kind of like whatever she could do by rote that she had learned from her mother so she could function. It was kind of like in Montessori school, they call practical life. It's kind of
Hmm.
like those practical life skills where you can get through life.
Sure.
But but anything outside of that was was really more of a challenge. Well, what that led to me is that anytime, and my dad was raised on a farm in East Texas, so
Okay.
his philosophy was, you know, you need to contribute to the family home. So the free labor kid thing.
Yeah.
So I was helping my mom pick corn in fields in Aubrey, Texas, and I was helping pick peaches in Bowie, Texas. And so it was like I was almost operating like a more mature, older farmhand,
Yeah. I could see that.
almost. And then also, as far as the family dynamic, I was the one who was in the protector mode or watching out for the kids or uh,
Yeah.
it's just taking on even some of those roles. And and it's not like my mom gave me an option. It was like, okay, you're going with all the kids and so they can go trick or treating. Well, when I was in fourth grade, you're not you don't want to trick or treat anymore.
Right.
But a mom could have been the person doing that.
Yep.
But she she just went into a default mode where I was the person doing that.
Yeah.
For her own children.
Yeah. I actually share a very similar story to yours where I grew up. I have three younger brothers, one that's 2 years apart, 9 years apart, and 7 years apart. And when the one that's 7 years apart, when he was born, my dad and his mother had already, like, they were together, but they were not, kind of thing. It was a really bad, toxic situation, environment. And I remember I knew that I was born with just like this caregiving role that's always been in my heart. And so whenever he would come over on the weekends, I would turn into that mother role where like we would sit down and I would do my homework with him, and we're 7 years apart. Like he's
Right,
learning stuff that I'm learning because I'm just teaching it to him. And
right.
so I always had that protector role with him, and she loved it. She appreciated it. And we share that really close bond. And then when my brother, that is 9 years apart, when he kind of got into the rebellious stage, his dad and my mom ended up just, I wash my hands of you. Like, just,
Mm.
I can't deal with you anymore. So he ended up in foster care,
Oh
and
wow.
he got bounced around here and there, all these different families. And I was married at the time, and I was like, I told my husband, I said, I gotta get my brother out of this. Like, he is not doing well at all. And what can I do? So I ended up getting custody, full custody of my brother at that time, and got him enrolled into school, and he graduated, and he's got a couple of kids now, and he's doing very, very well. But it was, so I understand completely where you're coming from, where we take on those heavy, heavy weighted responsibilities when we shouldn't, you know? But thank God that
And
they,
you feel like you can't escape it. The only way that I felt like I could escape it was go to school.
Mhm.
So school was my escape, being in band and going to school. That that was my escape. And even, I mean, I really was setting my own rules because both of my parents were heavy smokers. Well, I had this really modest Opel Manta. This barely got me point A to point B
Mhm.
when I was in high school. And I would put an extra set of clothes in the car, and I hadn't been in their house, so nobody could smell smoke on me. So just just lots of things like that. Lots of things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, what are some ways hyperindependence has served you, and where did it begin to hurt your healing or relationships?
I will say the hyper independence helped me get through school. So, being hyper independent and working my way through school because there was no financial support for that. So, by the time I graduated from college, I weighed 98 pounds.
Wow.
I mean, I was just like that's all I was doing. I was almost working myself to death, but I was a really young person. And so that was going on. But also, and I will say with my MBA, also my advanced degree, that was helpful. Where it is more challenging is in family dynamics. Now, I have been married to my spouse for 36 years. He's been my business partner for 20.
Okay.
So where that can really uh, rear its head is both on the personal side as well as the business side,
Sure.
because sometimes you've got to you've got to listen to another person's point of view. Sometimes you know, and a
Let
marriage,
alone your husband, right?
oh wow, wow, and
Yeah.
compromise sometimes. And I
Right?
will tell you that that has been a little harder for me. I do have a nickname for when I go into that hyper independence mode, and that is really my shield maiden moment.
Yeah.
I am full on shield maiden. So for your listeners who aren't aware, that's those were the Viking female warriors were the shield maidens. So
Wow. That's super cool.
yeah. So that's kind of what goes on. I can just really be a little tougher. And I will say, because I do have a daughter who's 30. And
Okay.
so, being insistent on rules, but also on getting your homework done. And she has said, Mom, that was really great. You wanted me to get my summer book reports done, but you know, maybe a little too insistent on that. Because it's kind of like, okay, at times when you've been in that kind of a home and environment, you really can have an internal gauge that either is failure or success.
Right?
And
Absolutely.
that's kind of how I got through school and how I've really uh, moved through business and in my personal life. Well, um, my daughter and I, we have a very close relationship, and I listen to a lot of things that she talks about, and a lot of things she gives me a lot of really great advice too. But we
Oh,
are
we
two,
learn heavily from our children and vice versa. I love it.
and we're two adult women. How fun
Yeah.
is that? Like
Isn't
two
it? Yeah.
adult women. It's so great. But when you're in in school, you can be kind of well, you can kind of be uh, a little tougher mom. I
Sure.
was a loving mom, but I'm really insistent on, the schoolwork being done. And honestly, in looking back on it, I could have backed off a little more.
Okay. Yeah, the helicopter parent role. I agree
Well,
with you
and
as
not even just helicopter parent, but I think it was like kind of like the shield maiden mom parent. You know,
yeah.
that
Yeah.
dynamic was it's just a little too much uh insistence. It's not force, but it's really kind of almost dancing on the knife of that.
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
forceful, but it's like maybe too insistent. Maybe there could have been some moments where there was a little more flexibility.
Well, that's amazing that you became aware of that though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my undergraduate degree, interestingly enough, Tasha,
Yeah.
is rehabilitation studies with a minor in psychology. So
Oh
I
my
was
God.
like in both business and in life and in family dynamics, both my side of the family as well as my spouse's side of the family. It's come in very useful, uh, and coupled with the MBA has been very helpful for me in business. But it also puts me in a place with the combination of all of this. And I was also, because I was a parentified child, I was a very intuitive child. I was always looking for those verbal cues, those
Yeah.
body language cues, and so I've utilized that in life a great deal in business as well. So I'll enter a room and I will be looking for all of those signals,
Yeah.
and I will tell you, even networking or being around other people in business, because I'm so hyper vigilant
Yeah.
at times, hyper vigilant, which is it's really kind of the holdover really from my family situation, that can be exhausting
It
because
is
it's a
exhausting.
state of
I call it a
hypervigilance.
blessing and a curse. It is really exhausting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because of your practice, what you do. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a certain amount of hypervigilance there because you're always trying to read.
Always.
You're always reading.
And so it's like, how do we train ourselves to just for a minute, right?
Well, I will actually do that with some friends that I know I can relax with, even business associates. And
Yeah. So what do
I
you like to do for your like extracurricular activity for the healing journey? Do you do sound bathing, meditation? What are your normal practices?
I do some meditation and some mindfulness time, and I also have a wind down routine
Nice.
because I don't want to spend my night ruminating. I don't want
Right.
to do that, so I try to stick to that and keep that. Now I've had a couple of things come up in the business but I've had a little rumination with that. I don't like that. I don't like that to creep in,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've really worked hard on that. And there's some things I can still improve. I can still really
Oh yeah.
improve my meditation practice. I can really improve some other things. And there is here in Denton, Texas, there is a Reiki master that I want to uh, go and visit and
Beautiful.
be a client of hers. And I would like to, since I'm on a lot of virtual meetings, podcasts, calls. I want to have some more movement in my life. And I am looking into some Tai Chi practice. And there is a practitioner of Tai Chi just to get more movement in my body, which is good for that, but it is also good for release.
Yeah. Yep.
So, so I'm kind of in the period of my life where some people are like, "Whoa, yeah, she's a little more woo woo here." But I
That's
found that those
fine.
are those
My
are
God,
like the
I'm
healing
so sick and
practices.
tired of hearing that word. I'm
Yeah,
so sick and tired of hearing that woo woo
I'm
word.
sure you do. But it's in the real estate world, especially on the commercial side. This is honestly our conversation, which is pretty normal for us, is way out there for them. It is a very male dominated sector,
Yeah.
and it is tough, tough, tough for some of the men. And but those are some of the things that I look for because you've got to have healing and release, and especially now with some of the drivers that are out in the economy. And if you are an entrepreneur, you're in business, you've got to be very aware of those. Now, that's another one of my little powers is I am hyper vigilant regarding some of those things. And the
Hmm.
conversations that I even have with some of my real estate investor friends and uh, and
Same. Can
brokers
you almost like
and
see?
brokers, they're like, you're
Yeah.
looking at this, you're looking at that, you're scanning for danger.
Constantly.
You're scanning for danger.
Constantly. Can you
Mhm.
almost feel stuff before it happens?
Oh, I
Like,
can't.
yeah, like on the road, my boyfriend will be driving and I'm like, babe, that's gonna happen. And then it happens. It's like it's crazy. I can't explain it, but I can
They don't
just
they don't like hearing some of the things that I say, so it's like, "This is gonna happen," or, because I also I'm a real history buff, but I also lived through stagflation
Yeah.
and a previous recession. And some of my real estate investor friends and brokers, they don't like to hear me say those two words,
And that's fine. That's
stagflation
why
or
you
real
have.
estate recession or recession. And I'm like, well, you think you can dodge it, but uh, tell me which indicators are not indicating some of these things. And that's because I was a former financial analyst and senior
Okay.
business analyst as well. So I'm like, okay, tell me, you talk to me about the economic drivers and tell me what that's flashing to you. And I will, in contrast, tell you what some of these economic indicators are flashing at me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. But here's the thing, Sharon, is we don't have to explain it to these people.
No, I don't.
I just want them to come to our side.
Yeah. Well, it's honestly, Tasha, I feel like with some of my real estate friends who are Benny, I almost am a translator. I'm like, I
Good.
know you're not going to see what I see in a room.
Yeah.
I know you're not going to see what I see uh, in anything. What I read, what I hear. I have other podcasts that I'm listening to, or other webinars or webcasts that I'm on regarding real estate and the economy. And they are, they're kind of listening to everything at a normal clip.
Yeah.
But over time, they've understood, and I've had to explain this. I am sensing or reading or hearing at a hypervigilant clip.
That's the difference.
That's the difference.
And so do you think it's based off of experiences and wisdom that's why, or why do you think that is?
I think it's experiences and wisdom, but I also think that it's a matter of training.
Okay.
Because, when back when I was a parentified child, um, I had to really spend the time reading those rooms. And then
Yeah.
I also had to spend time training myself or educating myself, because my mom is not really capable of helping me with homework.
Right. So you had to learn the tools that she
I had
didn't
to I had to
come up
learn the
with.
tools that most mothers, most dads are going to readily have available. Like
Right.
with my daughter, my husband and I, we readily had tools that were available, whether it was reading or language or uh, or mathematics. Uh, we even had a science project one time that was Nora and her partner were raising painted lady butterflies.
Hmm.
Well, in MBA, with your MBA, they don't teach you how to solve biological issues, but you have to have some deduction. And we had to go through 3 different lots of painted lady butterflies, because out in the field, they had issues with each one, and they were different root causes. So it was a lesson for me in the scientific method, because as the mom in charge, I was deducing all this, and I was telling the other mom, who was a dentist, what had transpired, because she's got her dental practice, and I'm on the line talking to the field biologist regarding these. Well, we got both the kids uh, off, and they had their science project at the TW, the Texas Women's University Science Fair, and they got an award. Now their
Wow.
now their hypothesis was incorrect, but all the parents in charge let them have their own hypothesis. That was invalid, but that was part of the learning.
Yeah.
We didn't helicopter in with them. It's like we didn't change their hypothesis.
Good.
We let
Good.
them. There you go.
So what role, speaking of all of that, what role has forgiveness of others and even yourself played in your growth?
Well, I will say I've had to forgive, but I will say at times I am a little slow
Okay.
to forgive. I'm a little slow to forgive.
Okay.
And I've found that in my interactions, when someone has crossed some line with me, that's that's that is tougher for me. That's tougher for me. I've forgiven my mom. I forgive my husband when we differences of opinions, or we have times where, you know, people they either intentionally or unintentionally hurt each other,
Sure. Do you think
where there is some wounding. But I have found over time, and Dan would agree with this, that that process has sped up. I'm not holding on as long. But part of it is I don't really want that burden to carry. I don't
right?
want to carry that burden. I've had it described to me that if you are not forgiving an individual, it is like having a burlap sack full of manure and just dragging that across the field.
Yeah. Do you think that not fully understanding the boundaries that we set for ourselves and others, do you think it's the understanding part that we're not understanding about our own boundaries that keeps us frustrated and keeps us irritable and keeps us in that state? Where it's like if you lay a strict certain boundary out word for word and you read it, if you stick to that, why would it frustrate and upset you? So maybe there's some misunderstandings about boundaries that causes frustration.
Well, I think sometimes in life, Tasha, there's some gray areas.
Yeah,
Sometimes there is some subjective thinking, and sometimes you also just need to give people a little grace.
exactly.
And that is something that I have learned over time. And I will tell you a kind of a culmination of a grace moment was
Yeah,
Mother's Day. Well, we all went with my mom and my brother and my sister, her husband, uh, my niece and nephew, and my great niece, all that family. We went
this
to
past Mother's Day.
this past Mother's Day. And
Okay.
we just had a grown up time, except for, of course, little baby Rainey, who was sitting on my lap.
Uh-huh.
But, yeah, and it was just kind of a moment of peace and grace.
Aw.
So I think, and I just thought to myself, wow, on the other end of all of the struggle, you can have those moments. Now, sometimes they're fleeting, but you do need to treasure those in your heart because you can have them.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. So then if your inner child could speak freely now, what would she say?
She would say, I want to play more.
Oh, I love that.
I
Oh my
did a
God.
lot of reading as a kid. I was a real bookworm, but I think sometimes I think she just wants to play more.
She does. She sounds like it for sure. She's tired of working her butt off.
Yeah, she is.
Oh my gosh. So, what does it mean to you now to live as a more healed version of yourself? And where do you see yourself in the next 10 to 20 years?
Well, it feels those good days, it's really peaceful.
Wonderful.
It's really, really peaceful. And honestly, in the next 10 years or even 20
In your
years,
future, yeah.
yeah, I'm going to have to live this really long life here. Uh, I think I'm just going to continue to explore uh, healing techniques and methodologies because what I have learned is there's not one set way of doing many things, and that is a lesson of flexibility that I didn't experience in my childhood.
Right. But isn't it so awesome?
It's very, very freeing. So
Yeah.
if I want to try something that you and I would say, oh well, that just makes a lot of sense to do. And
Yeah.
my real estate people would say, why are you doing that? Have you lost your mind?
Right?
Yeah, I just want the freedom to explore some of those techniques and those methodologies. Yeah.
Good. Good for you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
my health people, my fitness coach and trainer, those would make sense to him. They
Yeah.
make sense to my my ND, my naturopathic doctor. It makes
Yeah.
sense to him because it's all the healing modalities. We talk healing modalities between those two. But when I introduce those in a different collection, it's like I'm the icebreaker. I'm breaking the ice regarding a topic that is not part of their normal practice, but I can define and translate why I'm doing that in a very detailed way. So because real estate's very detailed, and you have a lot of metrics regarding successful outcomes. So I can just do that regarding other things I'm doing and share why I'm doing that. And it's because I'm focusing on my body and my healing, and to achieve my goal of being a very high functioning, high cognitive function, delightful, wonderful old woman. I need to do a lot of different things and experience a lot of different techniques to keep me progressing forward into that delightful old age.
Yeah. I mean, as society keeps evolving, so do we, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so then what would you say to someone listening who still feels stuck in old roles like we've had to play? Caretaker, fixer, silent protector, all that.
Uh, I would say keep exploring some other ways of doing things, whether it's tasks, whether it's thinking, whether it's how you move in the world. And also give yourself some grace and listen to your heart, listen to your intuition, because a lot of times, uh, you know, making it more palatable in the real estate world, I call it the gut check. The gut,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because most people, it's like, oh, in my other, with my other tribes, I can say intuition. So I
Uh-huh.
listen
Yeah.
to intuition, and with my other tribes, it's like, oh, I'm listening to my gut check here.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, you've experienced that too. You know
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
there.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
really, be able to listen to that intuition and really give yourself the grace to just call it intuition too. Just you can call it intuition. Just call it. Men, women, you can call it intuition. It's really acceptable.
It is what it is.
It is.
Well, thank you so much, Sharon, for coming on here and sharing your story. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I know that it's definitely going to touch some hearts out there for sure. So thank you again. And I am super proud of you from the bottom of my heart. So
Well,
keep on
thank
going.
you.
I can't wait to see where your journey takes you.
Well, thank you, Tasha. And I'm very proud of you for everything that you've accomplished. So we can really each function in the world as healed women and continue to heal. Because it's
Absolutely.
not just job done. It's like an
No.
everyday job.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sharon. That means so much to me. All right, you guys, until next time, have a beautiful day. For more information on where to find me, please visit deepwavescoaching.com and on my Facebook and Instagram page at Deep Waves Life Coaching. For more information on where to find Sharon, please visit her Facebook at sharon.riddle.543, her Instagram page at Sharon Birdsong Riddle, her LinkedIn, Sharon Riddle, also her website at www.excalibretexas.com. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good day.